to the Flix Forum podcast, where each episode we go back and we look at a Netflix original film in the order of release. Today we have Netflix 371st film from 2021. It's the horror film called Things Heard and Seen. It's directed by Shari Springer Berman and Robert Puccini, and it stars Amanda Seyfried and James Norton. I'm Jesse, I'm your host. Thanks for joining me today for this Netflix original film. As always, if you haven't seen this film and you are keen on checking it out, give us a pause now and come back a little bit later on, because we will spoil the movie as we go through this discussion. So we do kick off with the Fast Flicks, where we do a quick little summary of what the film is all about. So this one is about a family who moves to the countryside, but their house is haunted. Ooh, that is such a really poor way of putting this film, but I'm just trying to tie it into horror as best as I can, because that's what the genre apparently is, but we'll probably talk about that a little bit more as we go. So how did this one end up on Netflix? What are some translations around the world? So in Spanish and Italian, this one's called The Appearance of Things. In Portuguese, it's called Voices and Figures. Yeah, not bad. In French, it's called In the Blind Spots. Greek and Japanese, it's called What the Darkness Whispers. In Hungarian, it's called The Haunting Past. In Polish, it's called What You Can See and Hear. Romanian, it's What Was Heard and Seen. In Russian and Ukrainian, it's Seen and Heard. In Slovak, it's What We Saw, What We Heard. In Chinese, it's called The Mystery House Dark Whisper. Interesting. In Turkish, it's called Everything Disappears. And Vietnamese, it's called Eyes See and Ears. Vietnam, always give us a good one to finish with. This film, it had a tagline. It was Mistrust Your Senses. Fair enough, we get the idea, ghosts, spirits, all that sort of stuff. This is based on the novel called All Things Cease to Appear by Elizabeth Brundage, which is vaguely based on a real life story. So I do like that title a little bit better than the film title anyway. So apparently in 1989, there was a 29-year-old called Kathleen who was found dead at her home in New York with an axe lodged in her head while her daughter sat quietly in her room. James Krausneck Jr. claimed he'd found his wife's body and immediately called the cops. His alibi noted that he was at work all day. However, after further investigation, it was discovered that James had fooled his employer, and similar to the film, his wife had learned shortly before her death that he had lied about completing his doctorate. After more forensic evidence was found, James was indicted by a grand jury in 2019, so a long time later, with second-degree murder. He pleaded not guilty and was found guilty and is currently appealing still, I believe. So interesting, that gives away a bit of the story for the film as well. This film, it was announced in September of 2019 that Amanda Seyfried had joined, with Shari Springer Berman and Robert Puccini directing from a screenplay that they wrote, and Netflix was on board for distribution. Filming took place over a 34-day period during the fall of 2019 in New York's Hudson Valley, where the story is also set. 40 local crew members were hired and over 500 background extras were booked through Hudson Valley Casting. Tech City, which was the former IBM headquarters in the town of Ulster, was rented for months as the qualified production facility and for administrative office space. Over 4,400 rooms were booked at regional hotels, and the local spend was north of $13 million, so a lot of incentives there for the local community where this one was filmed. A number of landscape paintings from the Hudson River School feature prominently throughout the film. This film is described as a Swedenborgian thriller, and the film references the teachings of the 18th century theologian Emanuel Swedenborg. This one hit Netflix on the 29th of April 2021, and it was put on the 2022 Reframe Stamp feature list, which we see with a lot of films here. What are the critics and audiences saying about this film? So on Rotten Tomatoes, it sits at 38%. That's on 89 reviews, so that is rotten. The audience is even lower at 24%. That's on more than 500 ratings, so pretty ordinary there. IMDb, it's got 38,000 ratings. It sits at a 5.3 out of 10, so that's okay. Letterboxd, a little bit lower, 2.4 out of 5 on 63,000 ratings, and has been logged by 83,000 people. Metacritic, with the traffic light system of green, yellow, or red, it sits in yellow for both critics and audiences. The audiences have it at a 4.6 out of 10 on 58 reviews in the yellow, and the critics have it at 49 out of 100 on 24 reviews. So what are my early thoughts after all of those data and those numbers? I think the film looks good, the performances are fine, but it just plods along at such a slow pace. You can see where the film is going quite easily. I guess some more twists and turns may have benefited the film a little bit. But let's talk about the characters in this film. So our main characters are Catherine and George, the married couple. Catherine is an art restorer, and she puts her career on hold to support her husband, George. And this seems to be the common thread that she's almost done always to support whatever he needs. She has an eating disorder and struggles with this move. They pick up their family and move to the countryside for his work, and she feels a little bit isolated and lost. But she does believe in spirits and ghosts and makes a bit of a connection in the house that they move into. George, on the other hand, everything is always about him. He used to apparently be an artist, but he's more of a con man, I think, and he sticks to the theory side and is a bit of a teacher or a lecturer. He's a liar, he's a cheater, and he's a murderer. What is there to actually like about him? There is nothing to like about him. He was horrible before they moved into this countryside sort of a house. So the evil spirits that latch onto him in this house and continue to gaslight his wife and his poor behavior, that these are all things that are just overemphasized or made bigger than they were prior to them moving to the countryside. Franny is their daughter, Catherine and George's kid. She's really just used as a plot device, realistically. She's there to progress the plot along. The same as Eddie and Cole. These are some brothers who live next door. They used to live in the house that Catherine and George have, and they're hired by Catherine to help her clean it up. Eddie represents the temptation for Catherine, I guess, and Cole was there literally to babysit Franny and get her out of the way at times. The only other character, I'll mention a couple other characters. Justine, she's a weaver. She works at the school that George works at, and I think it's quite clear that she knows from the get-go that George is bad news. The other person that George sort of communicates with is Floyd. He's his boss at work, and I guess he becomes a friend to Catherine because he also believes in the spirits and supports her in working with the ghosts in their house as well. Willis is this character. She's a young, attractive character who's thrown in there for George to have an affair with, realistically. There are multiple times where they try to make you as an audience think that there's something sinister up with her, but she just goes missing for most of the film and realistically is nothing else. The directors, Shari Springer Berman and Robert Pulcini, they're married. They've done a lot of films. The Nanny Diaries is the family film, the biggest one that I could recognize. Done a few episodes of Only Murders in the Building, the Hulu or Disney Plus show, and their first feature film called American Splendor. They received an Academy Award nomination for Best Adapted Screenplay, so obviously good at what they do. What are some scenes in this that worked? What are some scenes that didn't work? The ones that worked, George and Catherine, they're sort of going at it in bed, making love, and Franny, the daughter, screams, sees a ghost, comes in, and Catherine lets her get into bed, and the look of disappointment and anger on George's face was quite funny. I liked that. And then Catherine, I spoke before, she's got an eating disorder. There's a moment where she's in the toilet vomiting, and her comment to George is that I'm throwing up my marriage, leave me the F alone, and then the ghost slams the door on George's face for her. I thought that was good. Some things that didn't work in this one, I think George, he comes home and he's having a shower and he's fondling himself in the shower after meeting this Willis character. That was gross, not needed to be seen. Then George goes for a run randomly and he comes across some stables and he sees this Willis girl there and he follows her inside to the stables and then she's just lying in a bed in her underwear waiting for him. Not well done. There's a moment where Catherine pulls a fetus out of the kitchen sink. That was a bit gross and didn't really tie in with much. The whole Justine, and this is a bit frustrating, but the whole Justine telling Catherine that she'd made a scarf for George's mum because George had asked her to do it. It was just so obvious that he was getting it for the girl and he was a bad person. There's a moment where George and Catherine are coming home from a party and he's been drinking, he's high on weed, he's driving the car, he's driving erratically. Catherine's telling him to stop. She gets out, she has a go at him. Then he hits her. Not nice. George sits down with Justine at another party, holds her arm, won't let go, really awkward. Catherine getting it on with Eddie, like that wasn't really needed when we had almost already seen that he saw her more like a mother. I'm not sure we needed to bring her character down to that. And then the final shot, George is on this boat, it's raining, there's fake fire in the sky and in the water and he's going into hell. It just looked really poor. Other than that, what's the film trying to say? Some themes, some ideas, obviously family, marriage, the highs, the lows, the ideas of temptation and sin and evil and the Me Too movement too, the idea of horrible men and toxic masculinity and the other side of feminine power and bringing justice of the independent women overcoming the odds and doing what's right for them. Also, supernatural, faith, belief, spirits, that all plays a part in this film too. Not saying that it really does a good job of the commentary on it, but they do try to touch on it throughout. What did I take away from this one? I think, and I sort of said this in the scenes, but it was a bit of a disappointment that it was so clear so early on that George was just a douchebag. It meant the rest of the film played out just watching and waiting to see how extreme he would go. I guess that was my one frustration from this film. What are some questions, some pondering, some ideas, some thoughts, some questions? I think I guess I was really surprised that they killed Catherine in this film. Like, usually these types of films, they allow the mother to live on with the child and be successful. Like, at the end of this, we know that George dies as well. So who looks after Fenny? I wouldn't want her staying with George's parents. One of the first shots in the film is of George coming home. They go this non-linear route at the start of the film, and Fenny's jumping on the couch. There's blood dripping through the house underneath. This is obviously him coming home the day after. He's been at work to get an alibi. He's coming home. The wife's dead. Catherine's dead upstairs. But then the next shot was of him running through the field with the kid Fenny in his arms. Like, was this just a purposeful mislead at the start of the film to try and throw us off? Because if it was, that's really bad. Catherine with her eating disorder. Like, was that just a plot point so George could spike her protein shake at the end? And if it was, that's not on. That's not good. I like this quote, Collider, online. They said that the film is something you'll hear and see, but won't remember. Not a bad way of putting it. Finally, George, he has sex with Willis, and then he comes home all energized, and he gives Catherine flowers, and the first thing she does is she throws them away. Was this a sign of this is what he does when he cheats on her, and he's done it before? I think if that's the case, then that's a clever little thing to show. Other than that, I'm ready to wrap this one up. We give the film a rating out of 5. For me, I think the ending almost destroys the film when it wasn't that great to start with. But like this final scene, the visual effects really take away from any impact or any thought that it was trying to leave the audience with. I mean, the film, it's fine to watch. I probably won't be revisiting it though. I'm giving it 2.5 out of 5. We're on socials. We have Instagram, we have Facebook, and we have X, formerly known as Twitter. The question for this episode, I just wanted to ask, is this really a horror film? Just because you chuck some ghosts in and have some blood and gore, does it make it a horror film? I'm not sold on it. I'm not sold that this is a horror film. There's really no jump scares in this film. There was nothing that made me jump at all. They tried a couple of times with some creepy lights flickering and stuff, but I'd say this is more like a supernatural drama, possibly. I'm not sure. I'm intrigued. What do you think? What genre would you put this film under? For me, it's not horror. Other than that, we are back next week. Next week, we have... It's Easter next week, but next week we have another episode. This one is a film from 2020, so it was released in 2020, but didn't hit Netflix till 2021. It's the Indian Marathi language drama called The Disciple. This one's directed by Chaitanya Tamhane and stars Aditya Modak, Arun Dravid, Sumitra Bhaave, Deepika Baid Bhagwat, and Karan Yadnapadavit. Excellent. The Disciple. I'm excited. Don't know anything about it. If you do, join us next week. If not, give it a watch and join us next week, and I will see you then.